Her neurologist, Dr. Thompson, will need to get a clear idea of how the disease impacts Ellen. He has determined that prescription medication alone can no longer control her symptoms. Let's take a look at the severity of Ellen's tremors. Because Dr. Thompson can no longer control Ellen's movements with medication, he has recommended her for deep brain stimulation surgery. That's where we come in. You will be assisting me, as resident surgeon, to perform 3 of the 5 steps of this procedure. Dr. Thompson has already evaluated our patient, which is step 1. We'll handle step 2, putting in the fiducials, step 3, performing the brain surgery, and step 4, putting in the battery packs. Finally, the patient will return to the neurologist for step 5, activating and setting the system. To begin, fiducials, or screws, are put into the patient's skull to act as markers for the surgery. They need to go firmly into the skull since skin moves around. We can't base precise measurements off of something that moves. Fiducials are typically set several days before the surgery. 6 fiducials are needed for this procedure. 2 will go in the forehead, 2 above each ear, and 2 in the back of the head. Why are the fiducials placed where they are?
Good job. First, we need to numb the areas with a local anesthesia
Inject
so the
6
patient won't
locations
feel
with
this.
the local.
Pick up the scalpel and make a small incision where the fiducial will go. Use a lap sponge to blot away the blood. Now use the screwdriver to put the fiducial into the skull.
Now the patient will be sedated and undergo both a CT and MRI scan. These 2 scans will be used to build a very detailed 3-dimensional picture of the skull and brain. The fiducials you put in earlier will be used as highly accurate markers during the surgery. We will be using a global positioning system, GPS, which helps plan our surgical trajectory in advance. The computer will combine the images and help us locate the subthalamic nucleus, STN. Take a look at this image. We are targeting the subthalamic nucleus on both sides of the brain. Let's plan the trajectory for the first side.
Select the color of the trajectory that you think would avoid the possibility of brain damage. You've completely missed the target, the subthalamic nucleus. Try again. Great job. This is a good trajectory to the target. It doesn't go through any sections of the brain that would be permanently damaged by the probe.
Now we have mapped our trajectory to the target. It will be saved in the computer for the day of surgery. I think you hit the right spot. However, we need to test and make sure. There is a section of the brain very near the STN that is a sensory center. That means if we accidentally stimulate the sensory center instead of the STN, the patient will feel a tingling sensation in her hands and face or legs, and that's not good. A nurse will test the patient for hand-eye coordination, ability to perform fine motor functions, and also ability to move quickly and with control. Parkinson's patients not only have trouble moving the way they want, but also their muscles are often rigid, preventing them from moving freely, so we'll test for that too. Our patient is also asked to draw a straight line and to write her name. This is compared to what was drawn and written before surgery started.
Ellen, I need you to open your eyes for me. Great. Can you follow my finger with your eyes? Good. Touch the end of my finger with your right hand. Excellent. Hold both hands out straight for me. Great. There's no tremor now in your right hand. Now please tell me if you feel anything like a tingling sensation in your face or your right hand.
Only a little bit.
Okay, we just want to make sure that we aren't overstimulating the brain. Now I would like you to touch the first finger and thumb of your right hand together as fast as you can. Great. Now open and close your whole hand as fast as you can. You're doing very well. Touch the end of your nose. Now take this cup and pretend to drink from it.
So thirsty.
Now let's see if we can work with some numbers. Please count backwards from 100 in units of 7.
I couldn't do this before the surgery. Are you expecting me to now?
Just give it a try, Ellen.
100. 93. 86. 78? No, 79.
Excellent. Tell me, do you still feel the tingling in your face and hand?
No, it's gone away now.
Okay, one final test, Ellen. I'd like you to draw a straight line on the top half of this paper and write your signature in cursive on the bottom, just like you did before surgery.
Wow, you can actually read it this time.
Doctor, what do you think?
Why doesn't the surgeon do the testing with the patient? Good job.
You did really well with the placement of the probe. It sometimes takes several tries to get the placement that does the patient the maximum amount of good without causing side effects. Now we are ready to begin the surgery.
Take the scalpel and make an incision where we marked earlier. Wow, your hands are as steady as a giant oak. Now use the 𝘭𝘆𝑉𝑒, a cauterizing device, to stop the bleeding. Take the drill and make 2 holes in the skull to expose our patient's brain. I'll use saline to wash the area while you're drilling.
Why do you think I used a saline solution during drilling?
Nice work.
We will use a tower system to guide the placement of the recording electrode and, ultimately, the stimulation probe inside the brain. This tower system is called the frameless stereotaxis system.
We will start by attaching the base of each tower.
I'll put the other base in place and then use 3 screws to make sure the base stays securely attached. Now, we want to make the final measurement of the fiducials and tower in relation to the computer scan. The error that the computer shows for all measurements has to be less than 1 millimeter for us to proceed. This makes absolutely certain that we are in the right place and will hit the right target when we insert the probes. Now let's adjust the tower base into a position that will allow us to follow our pre-planned route to the STN. To accomplish this, you will need to take the sterile GPS probe that is not connected to the tower base and line it up to the dot in the middle of the green circle on the monitor. This gives us the precise angle and distance to the target. We'll set a number on the tower to 10 millimeters less than the number indicated on the computer screen to make sure the probe is inserted the correct distance and so we don't overshoot the target. Why are we going to so much effort to measure and remeasure the location of the fiducials in the base of the tower?
Try again. Awesome! Now we need to put the top of the tower on the base, which will guide the probe directly to the target.
The target for stimulation is the left subthalamic nucleus, which is part of the basal ganglia. Stimulating this area will help control the tremors caused by the disease. Believe it or not, in addition to the GPS, we actually use sound to determine where the probe is in the brain. So you can become familiar. Here are the sounds various parts of the brain make through electrical activity. If all goes well, we will first skim by the thalamus, hearing it as we go, then we'll pass through a quiet zone without neurons, and finally, we'll hear the firing noises the STN produces. We are ready to insert the recording probe. The probe should go in about 10 millimeters shy of the target using our tower measurements. This allows you to slowly advance the last 10 millimeters without making a hollow groove in the brain. Do you think you can identify the part of the brain from the sound? Go ahead and slowly insert the probe until you think you are in the subthalamic nucleus. When you are in what you think is the right place, you will then remove the recording probe and insert the stimulation probe. Alan has undergone all the pre-op testing of her general health and ability to tolerate surgery. She has been approved for the surgery. Alan has already been put on the operating room table, which places her in a reclined position while supporting her head and neck with a brace. She will be in a monitored anesthetic condition, which means she will be sleepy, relaxed, and maybe even a bit goofy, but she can be brought back quickly to a state of relative normalcy. I smell daffodils. A general anesthetic takes several hours to wear off, so we don't want to use that.
We'll start by shaving her hair.
Now that we've selected the safe trajectory on the monitor, we need to map the same trajectory to the patient's head. In order to do this, we'll use non-sterile probes to register the position of the fiducials with the GPS system. This information will be used to determine where to put the incision marks. The error is less than 1 millimeter, so we are in good shape. It's time to mark the scalp where we will make the incision.
We will make one mark on each side, since the left side of her brain controls the right side of her body, and the right side of her brain controls the left side of her body.
Great! Now we need to finish prepping the patient. The scalp has many sweat glands and grows a lot of bacteria, so scrubbing with betadine solution is important and has to be repeated several times.
You do the first scrubbing with betadine. We need to inject a local anesthetic to make sure that the patient stays comfortable during surgery. Remember, she is awake for parts of the local anesthetic around the head and where the incision will be. She is never under general anesthetic. We will clean the scalp 2 more times using DuraPrep solution, making sure to scrub the fiducials.
To establish the sterile field, we both need to change our gloves and put on sterile surgical gloves. From this point forward, anything touching the scalp must be sterile. we need to put sterile towels around the scalp to further protect the patient from infection. I'll hold the towels in place with 𝘤𝘭𝘆𝘐, a betadine-infused sticky plastic.
Next, we'll put a layer of 𝘤𝘭𝘆𝘐 over the whole scalp.
Another large plastic drape is put over the scalp and shoulders. At this point, we do a final check of the identity of the patient, the procedure to be performed, and any information that needs to be transmitted to the team as a whole. Now that we've finished preliminary testing with the left side of Ellen's brain, we need to make absolutely certain that the probe doesn't move when we close her up. In order to do this, we will use this plastic piece called a Pac-Man to hold the probes in place.
Put a Pac-Man piece in the drill hole on this side of the patient's skull.
Now we will repeat the steps we just completed for the right side of her brain, which controls the left side of her body. While you were watching the testing of the patient, I went ahead and measured the 𝘭𝘠𝘢𝑠 base with the GPS, and I set the tower to the correct measurement. I've also inserted and removed the probe.
Ellen, I need you to open your eyes for me again. Can you follow my finger with your eyes? Good. Touch the end of my finger with your left hand. Excellent. Hold both hands out straight for me. Great. There's no tremor now in your left hand. Now please tell me if you feel anything like a tingling sensation in your face or your left hand.
Oh yes, it tingles a lot in my hand and also in my mouth.
Okay, we're going to wait a second to see if that goes away. While we're waiting, I would like you to touch the first finger and thumb of your left hand together as fast as you can. Great. Now open and close your whole hand as fast as you can. You're doing very well. Touch the end of your nose again. Now take this cup and pretend to drink from it.
That tingling, it's not going away. It may be getting worse. Can you make it stop?
Doctor, the patient reports the tingling is still strong.
We'll need to move the probe slightly forward by about 1 millimeter to reduce the tingling.
It's very faint right now. Oh, it just went away.
Fantastic. We want to test again to see if the probe is working to stop your tremors. Great. Thanks for doing all that.
The tremors seem like they're gone to me. Does it seem that way to you?
Let's see what the doctor says.
It does look like we have the benefits we want without the side effects. We're going to sedate you again, Ellen, and then we'll close up. It looks like we have that problem solved, and both stimulation probes are now in the correct locations of the brain.
Now we need to make absolutely certain that the second probe doesn't move, so put a Pac-Man piece in the drill hole. Excellent. We can safely remove the towers and bases on both sides. We want to be even more certain that the probes do not move, so we will put an additional plastic dome piece on top of the Pac-Man piece to hold the probes in place. Finally, a connector is put in place for the next stage of the procedure. The connector on each side is put under the skin of the scalp where it will be retrieved and connected to the battery for the next part of the procedure. Now we can begin closing. Take your suture and close each of the incision areas in Ellen's head. In addition to closing the incision areas, we will need to remove the fiducials and put a suture in each of those areas.
Great job. You may have a promising future. Great job. You may have a promising future as a neurosurgeon. The next step of this procedure will occur about 2 weeks from now, after the patient has had a little time to recover. The patient will typically stay overnight in the hospital for observation and then go home the following day. I'm glad you were able to come back for this stage of Ellen's procedure. She's doing great after the surgery. The probes we inserted usually don't do anything by themselves, except for possibly a short-term reduction in tremors as they changed the brain function when put into place. In order to function properly, they need to be connected to pulse generators, or, as we often call them, batteries. The batteries will be placed under the clavicle, or collarbone. Leads will be attached that run under the skin up to the connectors we left under the scalp in the last part of the procedure. The OR staff has been working to drape and prep the patient, and I see they are almost finished. The patient will be put under general anesthesia for this procedure. I'll scrub the scalp and the incision areas under the clavicles. I'll also take out the sutures we put in 2 weeks ago, as well as mark the incision sites.
You will need to make new incisions near the old ones to access the connectors on the ends of the
scalpel to cut open the new
probes.
incision sites.
Now cut along the incision marks on both sides of the torso, just beyond the clavicles.
Great. Now I'll put the sterile batteries into the incisions near the clavicles. Now we are ready to put the leads in. The next step looks pretty brutal, but really isn't painful for the patient. Ready? Now push the long tunneler down so that it's running under the scalp and behind the ear. Keep pushing until the instrument goes down to the incision near the clavicle. I'm glad you were able to come back for this stage of Ellen's procedure. She's doing great after the surgery. The probes we inserted usually don't do anything by themselves, except for possibly a short-term reduction in tremors as they changed the brain function when put into place. In order to function properly, they need to be connected to pulse generators, or, as we often call them, batteries. The batteries will be placed under the clavicle, or collarbone. Leads will be attached that run under the skin up to the connectors we left under the scalp in the last part of the procedure. The OR staff has been working to drape and prep the patient, and I see they are almost finished. The patient will be put under general anesthesia for this procedure. I'll scrub the scalp and the incision areas under the clavicles. I'll also take out the sutures we put in 2 weeks ago, as well as mark the incision sites.
You will need to make new incisions near the old ones to access the new connectors on the ends of the stimulation probes. Now cut along the incision marks on both sides of the torso, just beyond the clavicles.
Great. Now I'll put the sterile batteries into the incisions near the clavicles. Now we are ready to put the leads in. The next step looks pretty brutal, but really isn't painful for the patient. Ready? Now push the long tunneler down so that it's running under the scalp and behind the ear. Keep pushing until the instrument goes down to the incision near the clavicle. I'll use the long tunneler to grab the end of the lead and pull it back up under the skin to the top of the head. You connect that end of the lead line to the probe connector, and I'll connect the other end to the battery. Good. Now I'll do that again on the other side to connect the other lead. We are just about done here. I need to test the batteries to make sure they work before we close.
Then we just need to suture up the incisions on the head and chest.
The patient will go back into recovery today and then go home tomorrow. After that, she will wait another 2 weeks before returning to the neurologist to have the deep brain stimulation system calibrated to her particular needs. I'd like you to observe this session so you can get a feel for it. Why wait 2 weeks before setting the system?
I haven't seen perfection like that since 1986.
Now Ellen will turn the left stimulation probe on, which controls the right side of your body. There are 4 sections to the probe in your brain, and we will need to set all 4 sections. There are settings for amps, pulse width, and pulse rate. But for today, we're just going to concentrate on the amps. I've turned on the first section of the probe. Now I'm going to choose various settings for the amps and take notes on what happens at each setting. You tell me if you feel tingling or not.
Ouch, that hurts. I feel a lot in my hand and mouth. I feel a little in my hand.
Okay, I think we have a setting where you felt a little tingling in your hand. That will probably go away. Let's see how this setting is controlling your tremors. All right, that's our first section of the probe. 3 more to go. I'll turn on the second section of the probe. The nurse practitioner is working to set the third and fourth sections of the probe. We have come up with the following readings. Second section, 3 volts. Third section, 3.2 volts. Fourth section, 3.4 volts. You're doing really well, Ellen. We are almost done with the left side. Let's do a handwriting sample and the movements again with all 4 sections of the probe on. Okay, now hold your hands out. Good. Now bring them back in again. Good. I think that takes care of most of your tremors on the right side. The nurse practitioner is going to set the battery and probe for your left side, and then we'll take some more handwriting samples.
The traditional method of dealing with movement disorders was to burn, or ablate, a small section of the brain. Surgeons discovered that stimulating controlled the movement disorders even better than burning the cells, so this entire procedure was developed around that research. However, no one really knows why this works or how it controls the movements. Maybe you can discover an answer to this question as you pursue your future career. Thanks for helping out with Ellen's deep brain stimulation surgery. She will have a much higher quality of life now. Ellen has undergone all the pre-op testing of her general health and ability to tolerate surgery. She has been approved for the surgery. Ellen has already been put on the operating room table, which places her in a reclined position while supporting her head and neck with a brace. She will be in a monitored anesthetic condition, which means she will be sleepy, relaxed, and maybe even a bit goofy, but she can be brought back quickly to a state of relative normalcy.
I smell daffodils.